Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird, the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to episode 4 of the Blackbird Diaries. Today's theme is practice like no one will ever yell at you. I almost feel like it's not really necessary for me to articulate why we're talking about this because it's pretty self evident. Paganism and witchcraft has more than its share of these know it all, wannabe hall monitor meddling busybodies who are forever correcting people on social media, where I might add they are safely out of arm's reach, about the only right way to practice. Everything else is fake, and I disagree with it. We know who these people are. We all find them unpleasant, I think. So let's ignore the assholes and talk about how we might do that. So, my motivation for this and for casting off the chains of those know it alls is the fact that I did not escape the Jehovah's Witness cult just to join another or to be bullied by another human being about what I must believe and how they think I should conduct my spirituality. I don't think so. That was not the purpose of me coming to the craft. And another thing that I recognize is that connection with the divine. While this is a road that we can, oftentimes share with companions, hopefully very close companions, it's still ultimately a journey for the individual. No one can walk it for us. And therefore, no one should really be directing our steps. We can seek counsel, we can seek advice, we should definitely seek knowledge, but the decision about where to go, that has to lie within us. And spirituality, it must be honest, or it's the worst kind of lie. There's no value, no honor, no benefit to it. Can you imagine going through an entire life putting on this front and then thinking that there's not going to be any kind of consequences once you shed the mortal coil and you're going off to meet your ancestors, and they're saying, oh, you had this really free society, at least compared with us, and you chose not to be honest about your convictions. I don't think they'd be too impressed. I don't think the gods would be impressed. And most of all, I don't think it's the kind of mindset that actually allows us to grow or to thrive. So these spiritual control freaks, they're not the boss of me. So why should I bow or take their ravings to heart? They're not going to answer for me, and they're not the ones who are going to have to live with my choices. It would be one thing if they're saying, "No, I think you might be on a path that's going to lead you to problems. Here are what some of those problems are, and why I'm concerned." They don't do that. It's just about trying to browbeat people into submission, especially the sources crowd. They seem much more interested in imposing their regurgitated views than they are in analyzing the substance of ideas. And that's very much reflected in their conversations. It's always, I found this here and I found that there. They never get around to what does this mean and how does this teach me how to live and what can I glean from this? No, it's all I'm cleverer than everyone else because I was able to read a paper that anyone else who has the ability to read could read. But because I put together this presentation, somehow everyone should listen to me. I'm not interested in that attitude. And I'm definitely not interested in treating people like that, as if they're more important than what they actually are. It's just, they give me the ick. They really do. Another thing I think about is how conformity to current fashions is really not the same thing as accuracy or rightness. I mean, like any other community, sometimes we're swept away in little fits of fancy, or there are ideas that, come into vogue and we seize hold of them, and then we get a little ways down the road and it's like, oh, okay, perhaps that wasn't so clever after all. One example of this would be when I first began my studies, there was a great deal of insistence on we must never judge or anything. I mean, of all the things to borrow from Christianity, that they chose to borrow that. And they were very concerned about, there must never be judgment about anything or anyone or any idea. Well, we saw where that got us. And the fact that people are saying we need to analyze things, we need to put things to the test, we need to think about what impact certain ideas actually have in real world consequences. This is the swinging of the pendulum back into a more sensible direction. But there was a time when people were not convinced that was the sensible thing to do. They felt it was very immoral to have any kind of discernment. And well, we had unfortunate consequences for that, didn't we? And despite that, I mean, there is room for interpretation on most things, and there are valuable lessons to be gleaned from different interpretations. We need to be able to. We need to have the freedom to actually look at things. And so that's why I take the approach that I do. That's why I think we should practice like no one is going to yell at us, because even if they do, if we are acting honestly in accordance with our best knowledge and with our experience, and we're in an alignment, then it doesn't really matter if they're yelling. So we shouldn't be cowering in fear from people who are ultimately just trying to do a power play on us. It's not more glamorous than that. So I want to talk about my building blocks. These are the ideas underneath my other ideas that really shape how I evaluate a lot of different things. And I'm sure that if you've been following the channel, none of these will be any particular surprise because it's reflected in the work that I do and the opinions I espouse. So first thing on the list is the past is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. How often do I say that? I'm sure some people are sick of it, or there's even a possibility that perhaps there is now a drinking game, and every time I say that, someone takes a shot. I really hope I'm not indirectly responsible for someone becoming a raging alcoholic, because it's a true sentiment. We go to the past to start the journey. But if we cannot bring that wisdom into the present, if we cannot use it to chart a course for the future, then we really haven't benefited. Next item on my list is that knowing what the ancestors did or thought is not the same thing as knowing if they were correct to do it. This is a biggie, because some people use, what the ancestors did in the past. That's the beginning, middle, end of the story, and anything that deviates from that has to be got rid of. It's fake. It's false. It's, people are LARPing. They're doing something wrong. The thing of it is that our ancestors were living in a different age. They had different circumstances, there were different norms. And of course, even within the context of what was normal for them at the time, that doesn't mean that they were incapable of getting the wrong idea in their head. I mean, look at what happened, from say just take from 2020 onwards. Are you getting the impression that our society is composed of people who are in their right minds? Or do you see a bunch of media addicted, panicky people who are inclined to believe whatever people are telling them and to go into complete hysterics and to go off the deep end and act in the most atrocious ways, all because the media told them to? The idea that our ancestors were somehow immune from that kind of stupidity, I think that's a failure to acknowledge the realities of human nature. And if we don't acknowledge human nature, I don't think we get very far in spirituality. And I certainly don't think we lay the groundwork for any of us to successfully develop our personal path. And then the next building block I have on the list is all ideas have to be put to the test. You know, everything that is real has both a mundane physical application and a spiritual application. So we are able to test things out, and that's really forms my bar for how I make my own personal judgments into my practice. That bar is what is true, not what is convenient, what is the pet theories of some wannabe tyrant, not what's popular. What is true? What piece of truth can I find? And what is it telling me in this context? That's how I go about things. The next item on the list is that spiritual patterns that remain consistent. They are the clues. That's what we look for. Even when you think about human behavior, we look for patterns of what other people are doing, how they handle situations, as to kind of form our first basis for how we might choose to act. Then we experience outcomes from that, and then we decide whether or not we want to follow those patterns or not. But nevertheless, patterns are always very significant. There's a reason why things happen over and over again, and understanding that helps us advance our spiritual understanding as well. Next up is that everything begins and ends with nature. The observable world is our first teacher, our best corrector, and it is the trainer of our instincts. Nature is providing us everything we need in order to understand the spiritual flip side of it. We just need to keep looking at it. We need to keep learning. We need to keep growing. Then cycles and patterns are mirrored on every level of reality. That takes us back to the adage of as above, so below. I mean, it's observably, demonstrably true. It's, the physical and the spiritual. They are those two halves of the single coin. And it takes both of those halves to compose the coin. You can't ignore the one and expect to succeed very well. You can't expect that you can invest all of your time on one side and not have to develop anything on the other. That's just not the way that it works. We have to have things in the proper balance in their context. Then the masculine and the feminine, projective and receptive, in other words, is the foundation of absolutely everything. Everything that exists, everything that can exist, you're going to find components of the masculine and the feminine fusing together. That is what creation means. So nothing could be here if that process did not take place. And the only test that matters for ideas is what works. And when I talk about what works, I'm talking about what is actually life sustaining, life enriching, what is true. In the magical context, it absolutely was. Was the spell successful? Did the ritual work? Things of that. It's all about finding out what succeeds. And if something doesn't succeed, then it's something to leave behind. So you might have noticed a few things that were missing from that little list. A few of these notable absences from my building blocks are, what Professor so and so thinks. It doesn't matter what Professor so and so thinks for me. Famous author opinions. Anything outside of the distant past doesn't count. You won't find that on my building blocks list. The vain tedium of linguistics just for their own sake. Oh, that makes my skin crawl when people, delve into that, without any particular reason for it and without having anything to show for all that research. So it's one of those things that it seems to be very much a pursuit of vanity for a lot of people, which is very sad. Because linguistics could actually be a very enlightening field. It could teach us a great deal, but that's not going to happen because right now people are just trying to use it to, again, demonstrate how clever they are and why we should just adopt their opinions on everything. Very irritating. And then we have unanalyzed and untested tradition, or I suppose I really should say unquestioned tradition. These are things that are missing from my list. And the reason for all of these things is as follows. The only authority that actually matters, as far as I'm concerned, is that of the gods and natural law. I really bow to nothing else in the spiritual context. And the only reason why I obey half the human laws that I do is just because I would prefer to avoid the inconvenience of jail time for many a thing. The idea of what's right and what's fitting, what should be done, what's moral, that's not something that's really defined by secular authorities. What is defining of that is natural law and the gods. And so that's what I really prioritize above all else. That's what I think should be prioritized. And the reason why I'm not too concerned with, the opinions of professors and linguists and all that is because the historical record is very incomplete. And academia is replete with interpretation and it is replete with controversy. And some of this is owing to, kind of very dubious personal and religious biases of the academics themselves, or, they really emotionally invested in a theory, and anything that disputes it, they react to it emotionally, not necessarily rationally. There's a lot of reason for that, and it's the reason why I take these things with a pretty big grain of salt. And then, as far as what famous people think, even if they're famous people within the community, the reality is that famous does not equal wisdom. It just doesn't. Famous is good marketing. Famous is good salesmanship. Famous is knowing how to appeal to a broad audience, but it has nothing to do with wisdom. Oftentimes, it is an anathema to it. And as far as tradition goes, tradition is a place to start. And I'm not saying you overthrow traditions on a whim. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that tradition evolves and it is responsive to the needs of people. So that's kind of my take on all this of where I start with my baseline. So let's discuss some solid ground, or at least the search for it. When I left the Jehovah's Witness cult, I made up my mind that whatever I came to believe in, as far as spirituality was concerned, I wanted to be so sure of its validity that I would carry on with my practice and beliefs, even if I was the only person on earth to do so. That was what I was looking for. It wasn't about, what do the majority of people believe, what how many people can I convince of something. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was only of what have I proven to myself, and am I willing to stand on that ground? And I hold to that standard. And theory alone does not satisfy me. Truth is found in application. There's a lot of ideas that they just don't really come together until you actually practice it. And then it's within that practice that you see, oh, now I know. And now I understand. And then it just becomes something that is, I don't want to say unquestioned exactly, but it's not something that you have to relitigate its validity every time it comes time to involve yourself with that idea or that practice. And because I test all of these things and because I make sure where I am on these things, that's really why most criticism and objections that I've received to my personal beliefs, it doesn't really mean much to me. It really, really doesn't, because I've put my beliefs to the test, and only that which has passed the tests and has endured is actually carried forward. And let's just be honest, a lot of people who see fit to criticize and object, they're not exactly operating in good faith, are they? This is again just another one of those avenues in which people are trying to impose their will onto you, and they're trying to make you submit, which I think is reflecting very badly on their character, in my opinion. So, not only do their opinions not really matter to me on any deep level, but because of their way of engaging of me, it's actually made me think less of them as people. And then as far as, when it comes to origins and what was understood when and where something came from and all this and that, I don't really see what difference it makes whether or not a concept or practice was understood in the distant past or if that understanding came relatively recently. Because if something is true, then it's true. And that's enough of a reason to operate on that basis. I don't really think we need to overthink it. At least I don't think that I'm going to overthink it. I have plenty of other things I overthink. This does not need to be amongst. Now for structure. The general structure of my practice is essentially Wiccan. I follow the wheel of the year because I feel those shifts of energy. It's not because someone is telling me to celebrate these things because of X, Y, and Z reason. It's because I feel something shift in the atmosphere. I observe the ebb and flow of the moon because of the shifts in the energy. I tailor my day to day practices in accordance with the energy for each day of the week. I believe in a supreme god and goddess. I believe the pantheons we know are the children of the original pair and that humans are the children of the gods. I consider the elements to be the building blocks of the universe. I think the paradigm of the witch's pyramid is a very useful metaphor for magical understanding and a helpful way for someone to start structuring their studies. I think the Hermetic principles reveal universal truth, and I believe that all things exist in a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And the reason why this composes my structure is because this is what has been proven to be continuously true. The energy is real, the ideas are have solid links of logic. Everything that I've listed here really makes sense and it has crystallized in my mind, not just in my mind, but in my soul. Those are the bits I'm certain about. But beyond that, there's a great deal that I think there's a lot of room for rigorous debate and exploration. There are also the big unknowns, the things that we don't know, what we don't know. We're trying to find the edge of it. We know that there's more. We know something's out there. We don't know what it is, but we know it's around and trying to, and we try to find it. And, witchcraft, when you think about it, it's very dynamic and it's also a bit of a hoarder, because, we want all of our bits and bobs of information and understanding from past times, but we also want everything that's available to us in the present and we want everything that's to come. We're a bit like dragons in that regard. And within the witchcraft community, I've often felt this underlying feeling, sometimes almost a terror that the things we have yet to discover are profoundly significant, and not understanding them could be really costly to us. And of course, we don't want to pay that cost. We don't want to be sideswiped unnecessarily. And so we're always seeking, always testing, always asking who, what, where, when, why, how, because that search does matter, even if answers remain elusive. So let's discuss possibilities. There has to be freedom to explore possibilities, even if those possibilities are not probabilities. Sometimes an idea is presented, and it just seems like the presenters, kind of got the wrong end of the stick. But yet, there's something about the idea that there is something there, and this is really the exciting bit of witchcraft: the inquiry, the research, testing out lines of reasoning, seeking things out, trying to find out whether or not something is so. And even if I ultimately conclude that an idea just didn't really stand up to scrutiny, I don't think it was wasted time going down the rabbit hole. because the process clarifies thinking and it has forced me to consider a wider array of factors, and it really whets my appetite to test other hypotheses. And if someone wants to criticize that, they can, I guess, but I think it does make them look pretty foolish. Not exactly the sort of people who have a mindset that I would consider respectable. So this brings us to the heart. I really believe that spirituality and religion is just too much trouble if it's just a facade or something a person does to conform, to what's normal around them. Those divine connections, they're really made in the heart and they are maintained through the heart. And that's what makes it all worthwhile and worth attempting to live more in accordance with your own values. I really don't understand the point of making an empty show or of essentially lying about your actual convictions in order to maintain some kind of appearance. Our physical incarnations are relatively brief, and there's so much to experience and explore. And the idea of getting bogged down by people who won't be the ones answering for how we spent our lives, that's just really ludicrous to me. And I don't want to postpone until my next incarnation to live life now. That really defeats the purpose of me being incarnated at present. So, the soul path. No one's path is going to look exactly like mine, and nor should it be. We are all part of the puzzle, and no one can go into the spot that's designated for another. The pieces aren't interchangeable. Neither are we, and neither is our spirituality. And I really hope for anyone watching this that your path is truly your own and that you're practicing a way that reinforces your sense of freedom and that you're not having to deal with the spirit of confinement. Every individual perspective does add something because there's going to be things that you notice and you can see and understand that would remain elusive to others. But by following your true path, you can be in a position to share your insights and to do so that will also, in natural course, improve the general understanding of others. And life is just too short to outsource spirituality or to kowtow to pointless bullies. So practice like no one's going to yell at you. If you need a little bit of a pep talk and someone to bolster your courage, I'm very happy to do so. If you're looking for someone to absolve you from your obligations to yourself, that's not going to be me. So probably best not to share those insights with me. But otherwise, let me know what you think about all this. Let me know about your own path, how that's going, and how you have essentially shook off the undue influence of others who have no business bossing you around. Love to hear about it. And I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.